to have some, like, let's say, redundancy between similar nodes. So this layer of web serving didn't serve anything. It was just there for load balancing and redundancy. And then it got even worse because, I don't know if you remember, but we had internet, extranet, intranet, whatever net. So before, all the nodes, they were similar. So you just had to load balance, you didn't care which node. But now you want to know which node you want to route to. You want to add routing. And so those are the 4 phases of the evolution of the web server. First, static content, then dynamic content, then load balancing, and then routing. And if you are an architect, or if you have an architect mindset, because nobody cares about your title, then once you've got these like entry points, then it's easy to want to push more features into it. Can be caching, IP blocking, whatever. And this is what a reverse proxy does. In parallel, we wanted to share data. And, well, it's easy to share data asynchronously. You just put a file on an FTP server, and on the other side, you have a bad job that hourly or daily reads the file and renames it to .done when it has done the job. We've done data integration like this for ages. But when you want to have like synchronous integration, you need to interact with other systems in near real time. And my system, which is, let's say, .NET, is probably not your system, which is Java. So we need to fall back to the like most common brick there is, which is HTTP. And that's what is an API gateway. An API gateway is a specialized a reverse proxy on steroids. Basically, an API gateway should be able to do whatever a reverse proxy can do, plus. Example, a reverse proxy should do rate limiting because you want to protect your website against DDoS attacks, right? So you want to say, you are not allowed to execute more than 10 requests per second, for example. Great. Now you develop an API and you say the same. But some people might have requirements to go higher. And then, because there is a salesperson, they say, oh, that's a good idea for a business. Let's make them pay, and then they can send 100 requests per second. But you don't want everybody to have 100 requests per second, only the people who pay. And now the technical feature that say you are limited to X requests per second is not technical anymore. It's business related. Because now everybody has different like options. So what you can do, you can, let's say, who knows about Nginx? Yeah, everybody knows about Nginx. You can say, oh, I will create a C module and like create this business rule in a dedicated module. You have 2 problems now. The problem is, if you know about Nginx, you know that how do you change the configuration? You need to switch it off and on again. It's not great when Nginx is at the entry point of your information system. Second thing is, normally in a reverse proxy, you only put technical configuration. When you start having business configuration, it's not great because it changes very regularly. For that, we have API gateways. So here are a couple of API gateways that are open source and that you can install on-site. I didn't list any cloud-based one. In my demo, I will use Apache API 6, but know that there are others that also apply. So just 2 slides about Apache API 6, which is the project I work on, and then I will do the demo. So it's a relatively new project. It was like donated like 5 years ago. 5 years ago is not that young anymore. I mean, it's quite an old project, very established, right? I don't know if you know about how it works with the Apache Foundation. So first, you are incubating. So you give the project to the Apache Foundation, and you don't have a top-level domain at the Apache Foundation. You are just in the incubator, and then you need to prove that you have multiple committers, that they are from different companies, that the project is viable, whatever. And so the project became top-level in 2020, which is, in my opinion, very, very fast. It is based on the Nginx reverse proxy, so very good. If you know Nginx, it's already something. As I mentioned, the problem with Nginx, at least the open source version, is that if you need to change the configuration, you need to switch it off and on again, which is not great. So on top of that, you have something called OpenResty, which is a Lua layer, so Lua, the programming language, which allows you to change the configuration through Lua scripts. However, it is, let's say, it has a lot of features, but it doesn't provide you a framework to work. And for this reason, they invented API 6, which gives you really structure. It has like notions of routes and upstreams and whatever. I will show you afterwards. And it's plugin based. Okay, so you remember my solution is, hey, you have a versioning issue, you introduce an API gateway, it's done. Well, let's go a bit into the hard stuff. First, do you see my screen? Is it big enough?
Yes.
Yeah, you are young, that's cool. So here I will first start Docker Compose up, and I will show you the Docker Compose. So of course, I updated it yesterday, so basically if something doesn't work, I will look like an idiot, but well, I'm French, so I'm used to it. Here, everybody can read Docker Compose files? Yeah, great. So of course, I have API 6, latest version. Latest version, for whatever reason, is only available in this flavor, so you need to set the platform before. It worked on my Mac without any issue. If you want to make it compatible, it's open source project. Please be my guest, then I can remove this line. By default, API 6 stores its configuration in this etcd, which is a distributed key value store. Then I have the Apache dashboard, so if I have time, I will show it to you. I want everything to be monitored, so I've set up Prometheus and Grafana. And finally, I will have the old API, and I will have the new API. Normally, the new API shouldn't be available at the moment, but it's Docker Compose, so it will be available anyway. So how does it work? I have an amazing, so this is the CoffeeJUG, coffee because Java, right? So I can show you, this is the old API. This is legacy stuff. I'm using Spring, because I love Spring, but basically I'm using regular stuff, and I am using lots of annotations. And you know, everybody knows that annotations are bad.
Why?
Because everybody tells it. It's very bad. No, there is some pushback against annotations, and in this case, I would agree with them that actually the problem is get mapping here. How do you know by which annotation provider it is consumed? How do you know how it is used? What if I click on it and I say, where is it used? You don't know. In the documentation. So basically, there is no way to click and to know where it is used. That's the biggest problem of annotations. So for this reason, a lot of people now are pushing against annotations. I am a bit more pragmatic. So this is lots of annotation, it's bad. And I've reworked everything. So now I have the same project, but now I'm using Kotlin because it's much better than Java. Everybody knows it, right? Don't ask me why again. And because of this, because I'm using Kotlin, then I can use the new DSLs, and now it looks nice, right? So I have one single annotation still, because that's how I kickstart the stuff. But everywhere I can click on the get, and I know exactly what it does. even the bell agrees with me. So here I can curl the old stuff. I think it's 8081. 8081. And I say hello. And I say CoffeeJUG. Amazing, right? And the new API is much better. Hey, what the fuck? It's a much better version. Much better, you agree? Yeah, perfect. So the idea is, how do I move from the first version, not good, to the second version, much, much good? Okay, so first thing I said, hey, you just set up an API gateway. So I will do it live, but because I'm like super lazy, but also super old, thus super experienced, everything is on GitHub, so I can always go back. Everything in Apache API 6 can be configured for an API call. So here, I will run this, and now it's configured. So how does it work? Docker run. I want it to be smart. Probably I will remove it. I don't use curl directly. I use the curl image because I'm French. It's so elegant, right? Here we say that we will use the default network. Otherwise, we are on different network. If we are on different network, they won't find each other. And here I'm using, of course, the API 6 components. And we have a route called routes, right? Here I pass a put, so I need to set its ID. And because changing the configuration of an infrastructure component is a very, very dangerous operation, we need to be authenticated somehow. And here, this is how we do it. We have an API key. So this is a demo. This is a default API key, which you should never use like this. You should always change it. But I'm lazy. It's a demo. And it's not the only way to secure Apache API 6. I have written a blog post. If you're interested, especially Andre, who is very, very about security, then I have listed a couple of steps you can do to harden API 6. And here I have the payload. So payload is JSON. You have an optional name. You have an URI and methods. Here, the methods are the default one. I think it's get, post, put. So basically, if the methods and the URI match the requests, then it will, API 6 will forward it to the upstream. Here, the upstream is a single node, which is, again, very stupid. Again, there is one single node which is set in stone. Normally, you should have service discovery because your nodes, they can come, they can go, whatever. So it's a demo, one single node to the old API. And because I want everything to be monitored, I have the plugins Prometheus, because remember, on API 6, everything is actually a plugin. So now if I curl, and I remember the ports, amazing. So I'm back to square one. Thanks. Ukrainian crowds is very, very tough, huh? Okay, next step. Next step is I want to start versioning. How do I want to start versioning? I would introduce versioning in some way. So actually, there are three ways to version APIs. The one I will use in the demo, the one that most people use, is path-based. So V1, V2, whatever. However, it's not the only way to do that. Another way is through headers. So either custom headers or through the content type. You would say VND like vendor and say version +1 JSON. That's another way. And finally, there is query parameter, which is listed as the third way, but I've never seen it in use. But they are all equivalent. You can do that with API 6. Again, as I mentioned, I did that on the path because it's the most visual one. So let's do that. So before I created the configuration in one go. However, we can see that the ID of upstream can be reused across multiple configurations. So here, what I'm doing, now she's taking picture of somebody completely unrelated to my presentation.
Who paid?
Who paid? I paid in chocolates. I paid in Swiss chocolates to have like exclusivity. I'm the star, я звезда. Okay. Anyway, here I can do the same, but I will use another route, which is upstreams, which actually I can create or update or whatever upstreams. The rest is the same. And here I create the ID of an upstream. Now I can continue. My first route, the problem is on every route, I have to remember plugin Prometheus, plugin Prometheus, plugin Prometheus, because I want every one of my routes to be monitored, which is very, very stupid because at some point somebody will forget. And guess what? If somebody forgets, there will be a problem exactly on this route in production. That's always like this that it happens, right? So I want to be Prometheus, the Prometheus plugin to be by default. So for that, I have another route, which is called the global rule. So by default, if I run this, every route will have this Prometheus plugin applied without having to explicitly tell plugin Prometheus. And finally, I will create the version routes. So I will run this. So now I create a second route, right? The same. The thing is the same. I set the URI to match v1/hello. Then I can reference the upstream ID that I created just above here, but I will go back to it just a bit later, and the plugin config ID. But first, I need something. I need to actually change the plugin config, or so to create the plugin config, so that I add another plugin to actually rewrite. Because if I just write v1/hello, the API gateway will forward v1/hello to the upstream. And the upstream doesn't know v1/hello. It only knows about hello. So I have to create the plugin config and to reference it. So here I've created it here, and here I've created it just above. And now, ladies and gentlemen, amazing. Great. So that's a bit better. But now I have two routes, right? I have one route that is version and one route that is unversion. We are people of habits. You probably will stick to the unversion route. Worse, you will have people, new developers, will check the internet and everybody said, hey, you just call hello, it works. So you will have more and more people like using the hello one instead of the v1. That doesn't work. So we need to tell to people, hey, don't use the unversion route anymore. It's not good. But guess what? You don't know who is calling you. You don't have their emails. Because you forgot about making people to subscribe, which is normal. Huh? You were so surprised that it worked already, that you have successful product that, well, even worse, it could have been a strategy, like people don't like subscribing, so you said, no, everybody is open bar. Great. So the only way to do that is through HTTP. We'll just tell people, no, don't use the inversion route. Use the version route. Guess what? We can't do it through an API call. And again, it's a plugin. So here on the first route, we will add this plugin, which is redirect plugin. So it will return code 301, and it will tell use this location v1, whatever was asked before. So now, if we curl without the version, it tells you, no, it moved permanently and you should use this. So basically, I just broke all the clients, right? Which is a lesson. If you are an API consumer, you should always, always also monitor your calls. Not only if you are an API provider, but if you are an API consumer, you should monitor your calls. But you can tell me, hey, but Nicolas, we are smart people, right? We are developers, we are Ukrainian developers, we are the smartest developers in the world. So we always do auto redirect. Very smart. Очень умные. The problem, here I've made 2 calls. The first one, 301, got back the response, read the new location, made the call. If you are using the cloud, for example, you've just doubled your cloud budget. So regardless, even if you are not that, if you are very, very smart, you should always, always monitor your consumers. You should monitor the headers, you should monitor the number of calls, this kind of stuff. Good. So my problem, why did I break all my clients? It's because I forgot to make people subscribe. Or I didn't want to at the time. Now is a good time to make people subscribe. Who here wants to give out their emails to receive some stupid marketing spam? You love it. Yeah. Give me your email, please. Believe me, I will subscribe you to every shitty spam stuff.
Can you subscribe to my one first?
Sorry?
I have a site that sends spam emails.
Maybe
you want to subscribe to mine?
No, that was not my question. Yeah, you will give me your emails and I will subscribe you to a lot. Then you will be super happy, the happiest developer in the world. Yeah, nobody wants to give out their emails, but we like free stuff. You want free stuff? You go to conference? Yeah, you want stickers, you want this kind of stuff. So perhaps, if you are a smart marketer, you can say, oh, give us your email, we will give you free stuff. And that's exactly what you do at conferences, right? Yeah? To receive a stupid sticker, you say, okay, I give you my email. But here, you won't receive a stupid sticker. Here, you will get unlimited calls. So basically what we are doing now, we will be limiting everybody, unless you give out your email. Pretty smart. It could work. The problem is, it sounds a lot like something that was not actually thought for every use case. So here, what I had to do, I had to create a plugin myself. And I had to write Lua. I'm not a Lua developer, but I'm a developer. So what did I do? I copy-pasted an existing plugin and just added my shit in between. So this is all the normal stuff. And where is the stuff that I added? Here, yes, here. I added 10 lines. 11. 10 lines without the comments. I'm not a Lua developer, but I can write code in probably anything which is not Lisp. I mean, it's not that I don't like Lisp, it's basically I try to learn Clojure, and I cannot get it. I cannot read it, and I can write it by, when I try to do it, I wrote Kotlin code, and then I translated it. And the problem with this Clojure, for example, is that you probably are reinventing the wheel, because if you don't know the stdlib, you are done. So, and afterwards, it's like 3 weeks afterwards, I cannot read my own code, which is a bit sad, right? So it's not that I don't like, I tried, and basically it doesn't stick. But whatever. So here, anyway, it sticks, or I don't need to learn it, I can understand it, and basically even you can probably understand it. So here I took the connection limit, and what I add is I check if there is a header, Then I will check in the consumer mod plugin if there is the key auth. Then I get the configuration. Then I look in the cache, and basically I try to get the consumer that has this key. If there is a consumer, I stop the business logic. If there is no consumer, I continue the business logic, and the business logic is at some point it will limit the stuff. The configuration is not that interesting. Basically, I did the same configuration as the regular rate limiting one. Here I'm using the plugin config, the existing one. What I'm doing is a patch. I just want to change the stuff that is here. I don't know if I run it. Let's try to run it again. And now I will need to do v1. I will stop CoffeeJUG. Now we'll just say, hello world, look how good it is. Okay, great. And now I do it again, and I'm rate limited. So yeah, that's why you always need to sit at the front row. Better? Yeah. And now I remember I wanted to show you something, which is the dashboard. So here I can show you the dashboard. No, it's Grafana, so it's not the dashboard. Here it's 9,000. Yes. It's not admin, of course. So here you can see my two routes, the routes, the unversion route and the version route. This is what there is in etcd, so you can view what is stored directly. Here you can make changes, direct changes. It's unversioned, this one, unversioned. So you can see the path. You can see the upstream that I created, and I have the old upstream because probably I didn't delete my Docker running stuff. And I have the plugin, which is the global rule, which is Prometheus. Perfect. So that just to tell you there is a dashboard. Everything I'm doing through the command line, you can do through the dashboard, but of course it uses the command line, well, the API call under the cover. So if you want people who are not super techy to change stuff, you can use the dashboard. Anyway, now next stuff is I want to create the consumer. So there are many ways to authenticate with Apache API 6 here. I will be using the stupidest one. I will just create a user and called John Doe, and basically if I pass a header with name API key with value my key, I will be recognized as John Doe. And so because I will be recognized, I will bypass the rate limiting. So here it's a new API. It's a new endpoint called consumers. So now, as I mentioned, if I pass API key, my key, great. Here you can see I've created the consumer. Dobre. Next, time. So we have version everything. Everything seems to be working. Time 2. It's not even 8 o'clock. Once everything seems to be working, what do?
Go home.
And you are paid for that shit. No, you test before. You don't test.
Why?
No, I said everything seems to be working. But you are an engineer. You should never trust when it seems. So who is doing unit testing here?
Customers.
Okay, now I understand why Hazelcast is going down the road. I left at the right moment. Who is doing unit testing? Everyone? She's not doing unit testing. Are you doing unit? Yeah, but you're shy, right? Yeah, you're not shy. So you are shy. Yeah, I see. Now your face is normally white, but now it's a bit red. Good. Who is doing integration testing? Who is testing in production? Everybody is doing testing in production. So beyond the joke, everybody is doing testing in production because even with unit testing, even with integration testing, you cannot reproduce, especially in the API world, all the possibilities of the payload that the consumers will send you. It's impossible. But you want to limit the risk anyway. So in general, you will do, okay, we will do some canary release, but before doing canary release, we can be a bit smarter. What we can do is actually, we can duplicate the loads and send it to the V2. And then we will just get and monitor the HTTP status codes. And if they are more or less similar, then it's a good sign. If they are completely different, then it's not a good sign. It's not even a good sign if you have more successes here than here. And you should have about the same numbers. Great, so let's do that. For that, there is an existing plugin called Mirror Traffic. So how do you mirror the traffic? You say, okay, here, plugin config, the existing one, I will change it, and I will use the proxy mirror, and I will send it to the new API. Now, something I'm very proud of. When I started doing this talk, it didn't work. And I kid you not. The problem is now we have multiple plugins, right? We just, like here, we have patched it, but there was at least proxy rewrite and proxy mirror. The problem is API 6 needs to have an order in which to apply plugin. This order is hard-coded. And what happened before is that actually the proxy mirror happened before the proxy rewrite. Remember, what does the proxy rewrite? It removes the prefix v1. So what it did is first it forked the payloads and it sent v1/hello to the v2 version. Didn't work at all. So through hard work, so that you can see that developer advocates are not just paid to get to conferences and get free beer, I managed to make it so that now you can change the priority, the hard-coded priority in the configuration. So now I can actually increase the priority of this one so that it runs before this one. And believe me, that's one of the biggest moment of joy of my life. I influenced the product. Though I was not an engineer, I was not a product manager. And people listened to me, which is amazing. Yeah, I hustle because nobody listened to me anyway. So, and now I can run it, and I can send a couple of payloads. And let's say Serhi. Now you are famous.
It's with the G.
Sorry. It's so. If you want to know, that's something that is very hard to me in Ukrainian. Is this soft, which is not soft at all for me? G. I know h, I know g, but I don't know.
But no, you wrote it correctly. It's with H. Just.
So I was right.
Yeah, but just in my passport they made a mistake, so I'm.
Who cares about your passport? It won't be seen on the video.
But you said it's famous, so you should write my name.
Yeah, but how do you advertise yourself on Twitter?
With G.
Ludzie tak? Okay, and now I can check on Grafana. So local hosts. No. 3000. So here I just took the default dashboard, the default Grafana dashboard for API 6. Who had to make dashboards for Grafana? It sucks, right? Yeah. I found a Python tool that could generate the XML for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's still not great, but it's still a bit better.
But I didn't know that. Apparently.
Okay. And I added 2 new widgets that you can see here. So they are not on the same scale, but still you can see that it's basically the same trend, right? So if you look at the trend, it's basically the same. You can say, okay, now I have confidence. I can really like deploy. But as I mentioned, normally before deploying, you would do canary release. Everybody know about canary releases? Yes. So let's do canary release. There are multiple ways to do canary release. You can be based on IP. You can be based on geographical location. You can be based on header. You can be based on whatever you want. The most important part is what do you choose, what the business wants. Here, I want to be completely random because I want to have a demo. And so I have like 50-50. Or normally, you would start with, I don't know, 1% and then increase it gradually. But here, it's a demo. I don't care. I just increase it 50-50. So something that was there before, but Again, I didn't remove the remnants, is the new API. I create this new upstream that should have been in the dashboard, but it was there anyway. And now I will be patching again. So I will remove the proxy mirror. Oh, thanks. Thanks. No, really, I appreciate that. You are not shy. No, it's good. It's good to give feedback. So this is the one that actually was created before in the dashboard that shouldn't have been there, but no, you create it here. And I will again change the plugin config, so I will patch it. I will remove the proxy mirror, so I put it null, and then I add this new plugin called Travis Split, and here the rule is weighted upstream. So the upstream ID2 will have a weight of 1, and the default one will have a weight of 1, so 50-50. So here it's static. Normally, again, you increase gradually. And you monitor, right? Always you monitor. Not this one. This one. Dobre. Up. Sorry, I removed you, Sergey, with G. Oh, I didn't run it. Yeah, that's a bit bad. Oh, yes, I did. So normally it should be about 1. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's random. So basically it does 3, 1, 3. Now it's 2. Okay. So basically 50-50 if I run it indefinitely. Good. I'm nearly there. So now we have nearly everything to version our APIs where we are able to test. There is one thing left. Is now we have V1 and V2. Probably we will have V3 and V4 and V5. And if you have any product management or engineering management experience, you know it's not good to have multiple versions in parallel. Because now you need to split your budget among all the branches. So what we want is to remove the versions that we don't want. And again, there is nothing really available for that. The best I could come up with is an ITF draft. And I think, last I checked, it has been deprecated itself. So there was not enough interest, which is a bit sad. But basically, there is a deprecation header, which can be a Boolean, which is not a great idea, but again, because it's a demo, I will use a Boolean, or a date, which should be in the future when you set it the first time. And it's like Java, you will say at this date, you shouldn't use this API anymore because it's deprecated. If you want to be, now you should have the alternative. Just like in Java, you just say, hey, it's deprecated, and now you go fuck yourself. It's deprecated, and you should use this instead. Kotlin does it very well, by the way. Java, not that much. So there is a link header. And finally, if you want to be extra nice, deprecation is you shouldn't use, and sunset header is, at this point, it will be gone. So it's like with Java. First, you announce that you will remove it, and then you remove it. So here you have normally 2 dates. Again, in the demo, I have a single Boolean because I'm super lazy. So now I create the second routes with all the plugins of the first one, and I deprecate the V1 routes. So now when I call this one, and I will be verbose, tells me, hey, deprecation true. Again, it should be a date, and there is a link. Here you can notice that I'm using Nginx variables, so I don't need to hard code a lot of stuff. I will just be reusing the variables that I have passed. So you've got all the information. And again, it's a very, very good idea as a consumer of APIs to monitor, to see this kind of new headers appearing and saying, hey, something is happening. Good. I think the next step is to relax. Because at this point, when the business comes for V3, I believe that you have got all the necessary tools to take it easy. The good thing in what I showed you so far is that, of course, it's better if you do it when you deploy the first version, but you can do it afterwards. So even for existing endpoints, which are not versions, you can still apply those tips and tricks. Thanks, you can follow me on Twitter, even though I don't use it that much because it's fucking Vatnikland. On Mastodon, on Blue Sky, on, you can find the GitHub repo if you are interested. Everything is on GitHub. It's a bit.ly link because I want how many people actually looked at the link. In general, I'm very surprised and not in the good sense. Nobody gives a shit about the code. And if I got you interested in API 6, you can have a look. That's the reason why I'm here, because my company sends me. Is there any questions?